Okay, this is part two of the primer for module two, productive occupation beyond paid employment. So we're still on outcome one, helping you describe productivity beyond paid employment, and I want to focus on a reflective exercise. So I think a way for you to prepare for this blog learning activity and assessment is to actually think about your own engagement in productive occupation and try to basically do the assignment on yourself a bit. And think of something that you do, a meaningful activity, which is how I deem an occupation, that contributes to the social and economic fabric of a community, that produces goods or services, whether paid for or not, and offers a social benefit beyond you, the individual. Now, I'd like you to think of anything but your job, your paid employment. Okay, so this could be a little bit of a stretch for some of you, but here's some thoughts, here's some ideas. Maybe you provide care for someone, whether it's a grandparent, a parent, a sibling, nieces or nephews, or neighbors, or maybe you feel productive when you're engaged in an aspect of household management or home maintenance, yard work or gardening, something like that. And maybe this expression of productivity is how you participate in your religious expression in your community, going to church, for instance. Maybe it's your volunteer efforts for either a local population, a community organization, or something that you volunteer for within campus, within the university setting. Or is your most productive occupation school participation right now? And that certainly is a productive occupation. Much of the readings actually put school participation under the construct of productive occupation or even work in some cases. So if you decide that that is your most productive occupation right now, think about how does it or how might school participation be deemed as productive according to this definition? How is your participating in school and learning contributing to the social and economic fabric of a community? How is it helping you to ultimately produce a good that you will be paid for, or a service rather? And how's it offering a social benefit beyond you, the individual? How's it offering a social benefit to others? So something for you to think about. Anyway, I think about this, and that's sort of part one of this exercise. Part two of this exercise is to then consider this productive occupation and take yourself through the process that you and your group members are going to go through with your selected productive person. So these are some of the questions. You've got the assignment. I'm not going to repeat that here. You can go through and read the three parts to the assignment. Remember, the first part is really just about describing who the person is, but it has a lot of pieces to that in terms of getting a nice, rich description, yet brief description of this person. And the second part is you really examining research related to how that person, something that person said or does, or something about the person's meaningfulness. And we'll talk about this more when we meet in lab. And then the last part will be a comment that you'll prepare in response to my blog that we'll talk about later. But anyway, these are some things that you might want to consider. What body functions or performance skills do you use to do this occupation? And I was thinking about this for myself, and whether I chose meal preparation or whether I chose learning, which seems to be the one productive occupation I'm engaged in currently that is not paid employment, is just my own self-development. And I think of my global mental functions and my executive functions are skills that I'm using. And to some degree, I'm using certain communication skills. But I'm not using a lot of physical skills, so to speak, to learn and to read and to reflect. When I do meal preparation, which for me is sometimes both work and leisure, then I do have obviously more involvement of my physical skills and certainly cognitive skills in a different way. So anyway, think about what skills you use to do this occupation. Then think about how you would describe the meaning that you ascribe, or that word means ascribe, or you attribute to this occupation, or you just give to this occupation. What meaning do you give to it, or what meaning does it give to you is another way to think about that. What drives, motivates, or inspires you to engage in this productive occupation, whether it's gardening, yard work, or school participation, or caregiving? How often do you engage in this occupation? Keep in mind you're going to be really looking at a bit of a time use diary or a reflective, what's a typical couple days like in the life of your productive person. So think about it for yourself. How often do you engage in this occupation? And does the quantity of time relate to its meaningfulness? Do you have to do it a lot for it to be meaningful, or just a little bit for it to still be meaningful? And how did you come to make this productive occupation a part of your life? Consider the human, the non-human, cultural or temporal, environmental or contextual features of this occupation. So were you taught how to do this occupation from a grandparent or a parent? That's part of your human environment. Is it because you happen to have grown up in the country that you're engaged in this occupation, or perhaps because you grew up on the beach that you engage in this occupation? That's more of your non-human context or environment. And then I think you pretty much understand how cultural contributes, and even temporal. Temporal in the sense of, where are you in your lifespan? Where are you in how old you are? Where is your productive person going to be in terms of their lifespan? And how is that influencing their participation in this occupation? So take yourself through the exercise that you're going to have someone else go through. That was one of the best pieces of advice I was given in OT school, especially in working in more of a psychosocial or mental health domain. We were always encouraged never to run a group with a group of clients, or never to try an intervention with clients, even in the physical disability realm, that we hadn't tried ourselves, so that we could really appreciate how it's received by the client. So I think it's important that you practice these questions. And one of the other ways that you might want to do this is with your group members. Think about taking turns interviewing one another a bit about your reflections on these assignments. I'll go and do this a little bit on your own, but then come together and start interviewing. One just ask a few questions, and then someone else pick up and ask someone else a few questions. You might discover that one or two of you is really adept or really good at the interview process. And while they may not come up with the questions, you might want that person actually conducting the interview, and you all contribute to creating the interview guide. Or maybe there's one person who's really great at coming up with just really brilliant, open-ended questions that really make you want to tell your story, that make you comfortable. That person might help refine your interview guide, even if they're not the ones necessarily conducting the interview. So anyway, one way or another, jot down or journal the answers that you have to these exercises, or to this question, this set of questions. You might want to record them using your webcam or a voice memo on your mobile phone, and then you can replay how they sound. Because I think sometimes we think that we're asking a question that makes sense, but we find that we actually are asking three questions in one. And that can be difficult for a person to know how to answer. So sometimes hearing ourselves speak helps us to refine that. But journaling is also just a good way. Anyway, I think that this reflective exercise will help you understand the assignment better. So it'll alleviate some of the angst that might be out there for doing something new and different. And I think it's going to help you refine the questions for your group's interview guides. All right, so good luck.